Hello, Patriots, and welcome back to the Patriot Dad channel, where we can discuss current events and modern issues, all while keeping it as real as possible. We are going to be diverting from our normal music reaction to do an update on how things are going in Argentina with President Javier Milei under request from my friends on the channel in Argentina. Now, this video that we'll be doing a reaction to is a video put out by Bloomberg, and it's titled, "Is Milei's Radical Plan to Save Argentina Working?" Now, during the live stream that we had just the other day, one of our friends from Argentina chimed in there and said that things are difficult, but they are drastically improving as time goes on. The inflation is getting much more under control and things seem to be stabilizing. But before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that during the ramp up to the 2024 election, the Rogue Dermatologist and the Patriot Dad channel are collaborating to bring you another great deal. In remembrance of the attempt on Trump's life, if you follow the link to TrumpMug24.com, it'll take you straight here. Scroll down, add it to your cart, go to checkout, enter the code PDMUG, and you'll save 20%. Take advantage of this offer while it's still available. Now, back to the video. We'll see what Bloomberg's opinion is on this. We're going to get the video pulled up and start our reaction. If you are from Argentina or somewhere in South America and have additional input, context, or better information than we're going to get here on this Bloomberg video, please make sure to comment on the video and provide links to articles or videos that might provide us with better, more accurate information. The information available here in the United States is a little bit more difficult to obtain, so if you have something, please make sure to share it.
This is Javier Milei. He was elected president of Argentina in a radical political gamble, and the aftershock is now in full swing. Milei took office in December 2023 and believes his aggressive and controversial austerity measures are key to lifting Argentina out of a decades-long cycle of economic boom and bust.
And guys, so this has been just under a year. When he took office, he started just cutting drastically government spending. I think, in my opinion, this is something that we really need to follow suit with here in the United States. We look at the ridiculous amount of spending that our government has undertaken, and a lot of it does not benefit the United States citizen. This seems like a problem because a lot of that money is taxed from US citizens. Seems like our money should be used for us, yes?
And he knows it's going to hurt.
De corto plazo vamos a tener sufrimiento, pero después vamos a salir.
Close to half of Argentina's 46 million citizens live in poverty. Inflation is among the world's highest at an annual rate of 260%.
Guys, you thought it was bad here in the United States when we were at like 20%. I know they reported like 11%. We all know that was BS. It was like 20 or 25%, but that was bad enough. Imagine 10x that, 10x the rate of inflation we saw here. I don't know how people made ends meet here in some instances, let alone when it's 10 times worse.
And a sixth recession in a decade took hold at the start of the year.
Se ve cada vez más la miseria en la calle.
Pasar a pagar un transporte de 100, 120 pesos a pagar uno de 700.
100 to 120 pesos to 700?
Despite the hardships associated with his fiscal reforms, Milei's not your typical politician and enjoys rock star status. So what's propping up his popularity? And when will the electorate know if their gamble will pay off?
Seems like a good question.
Milei kind of came out of the blue. He'd only been in politics for 2 years as a national congressman. Argentines took a bet on someone completely new, that even in his discourse, filled with yelling and expletives, he captured the ire that they themselves were feeling at everyday life.
Yeah, viva la libertad, carajo. I think I pronounced that at least somewhat close to correct. Long live freedom, damn it. Makes a lot of sense to me. Very popular message.
And perhaps understandably, Argentina's the largest economy in Latin America after Brazil and Mexico, but it spent a third of the last 70 years in recession. It defaulted on its international sovereign debt 3 times since 2001. Runaway inflation and a devalued currency prompted the central bank to introduce bigger and bigger banknotes to help shoppers needing to carry increasingly large stacks of cash around.
And we have seen that this has not worked anywhere. When the government starts printing money to the point where they have to create brand new banknotes, guys, things are just not going well. Because then you end up with currencies like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's largest denomination of currency in their history when it came to hyperinflation was the 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar note, which is ridiculous, right? You just keep adding zeros to the end of your banknote because your currency is just so worthless. I can see why the people of Argentina wanted a change. High rates of inflation are not sustainable. They're not good at all.
We are in a huge crisis, but also we have a very important opportunity because we have things that the world needs. We have oil, gas, lithium, commodities. So maybe it is an opportunity to find our model of economic development.
Milei planned on finding that model. He started by stripping away government subsidies of public utilities, from electricity and gas to water and public transportation. This has had a big impact on people's wallets. In December 2023, an average household in the Buenos Aires metro area would pay about 30,000 pesos for public services. That bill has soared in the...
Now, guys, I am not a big fan of government subsidies. That is a market distortion that should not exist. But when you have hyperinflation that's also a market distortion created by government, what is the better solution? Just keep spending your way into oblivion, or do what Milei did. Just rip off the Band-Aid, let the suffering happen for a short period of time, and then let the system and the economy correct using traditional market forces.
Months since then.
Low and middle class households who previously had to pay next to nothing, about 5%, for the actual cost of electricity, are now having to pay between 20 and 30% of the real cost of that electricity.
This had real financial consequences for people like Mónica Pérez. She owns a carniceria in a working-class neighborhood.
Butcher shop, by the way. Carniceria is a butcher shop for my English viewers.
Outside of Buenos Aires.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. They're carrying a carcass of a cow.
But she says she stands by her vote for Milei.
Me encanta que no sea ese político tradicional. Nos acostumbramos a pagar la luz 2 monedas, el gas 2 monedas, y ahora él vino a sacar todo eso, que a mí me parece bien, pero también hay que recuperarlo.
And that's the important part, right? If you're going to have increases of prices, salaries have to go up also. We're seeing the impact of that here in the US with the little bit of inflation we had relatively, but a lot of the industries, especially the one I'm in, like guys, the cost of living has far outpaced the rate of salary increases. So what do? You just keep going to work and then you have less money at the end of the month. It's not fun. I'll tell you that right now, personally, it's not fun.
Milei also cut real spending on pensions, social security, public wages, and education, and halved the number of ministries in government.
Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera.
Afuera.
Ministerio de Educación, afuera.
Afuera.
Afuera, afuera, afuera.
It was all part of Milei's rock and roll campaign promise to take a chainsaw to public spending.
Milei reduced spending on public works in real terms 90% compared.
So that in real terms, when an economist tells you that, that means adjusted for inflation. Real terms, adjusted for inflation, cut public works spending 90%. Can we cut spending 90% here in the US? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe our government could finally start paying off some of its debt and stop going further into debt. Right now, guys, we are going $1 trillion in debt further every 100 days, approximately. We're $36 trillion in debt and more than $3 trillion more every year right now. It's not sustainable, guys. We definitely need to cut spending.
Compared with the first 3 months of 2023. That includes everything from hospitals and schools to train stations, bridges, and even hydroelectric dams, no matter how far along they were.
If you're a social media manager like me, HoneyBook has tools that make getting paid so much easier.
Esto es un edificio de una obra pública. Hace 6 meses que lo tenemos terminado el edificio. Todavía no lo podemos entregar Como no se reactivó la obra pública, no certifican, no pagan, no podemos hacer la entrega.
Juan Pablo Rudoni owns Ecosan, a modular construction company that works on both private and public infrastructure projects. Since Milei came to power, he says government contracts have been completely frozen.
La verdad que la expectativa no iba a ser tan duro.
The expectation the austerity wasn't going to be this harsh. Yeah, guys, they finished building that thing 6 months ago. They basically are eating the cost of that because when the GC or the people running a construction site or project, because this is modular construction, those companies are footing the bill until they get paid at the end. Sometimes they have installments paid in the middle, but they finished 6 months ago and the government hasn't paid them. Like, that sucks for them. That sucks for the companies that are going through that. Do you rip the Band-Aid off and take some of those consequences along the way, or do you just keep spending the people into oblivion? What's the more responsible answer? I think in the long term, the more responsible answer is ripping the Band-Aid off. What do you guys think? Yeah, it's going to hurt in the short term, but I think the long-term suffering caused by increased inflation, just spending into oblivion, is far worse.
Ajuste, que no íbamos a tener un parate absoluto de lo que fuera obra pública, es parte del costo que todos estamos dispuestos a asumir para tener una Argentina normalizada y con proyecto de futuro.
Oh, okay, so they're not even mad about it. They're like, yeah, that kind of sucks, but for a better future for Argentina, probably going to be worth it.
He's not alone in his optimism. Milei came to power with nearly 56% of the vote, and he's mostly retained that popularity.
Different polls show different numbers, but for the most part, he remains above 50%. This is really high approval rating for someone who's taken such unpopular measures. One of the main reasons.
Unpopular to whom? Probably people that were getting paid by the government. Probably unpopular with them, but yeah, to stay above 50%, that's impressive.
That Milei remains so popular is that there's still a lot of anger toward everyone that came before him.
There's plenty of anger when it comes to Milei's politics as well. He's right-wing and a self-described libertarian who's quite literally embraced Donald Trump and his political rhetoric. He condemned abortion, advocated for the free trade of human organs, and cozied up with far-right leaders and billionaires across the world.
I get this message, guys. We see this a lot here in the United States in politics as well. If you're not going to have policies that are beneficial to large economic companies and forces, how do you expect the economy to do better and for people's lives to improve? I mean, leave me a comment. If it isn't going to be for the prosperity of companies that create jobs and pay well, how else are we supposed to have a prosperous country? Just directly paying tax money to citizens? That's not sustainable, guys. Where is that money coming from? It's just being printed. Shouldn't government policies incentivize prosperity of large companies that hire a lot of people? I mean, we should also support small business, don't get me wrong, but it's not usually mom and pop shops that are running the energy industry, that are running agriculture, that are running big food distribution companies and other things. It's sure, mom and pop shops have their place. Small subcontracts, farmers, for instance, great family undertakings, HVAC businesses, plumbing contractors, like all the small subcontractors that these large companies subcontract work to, because don't kid yourself, all these large companies do not do all the work themselves. They subcontract a lot of it out. So when the large companies are prosperous, subcontracted small business is also prosperous. When you take an adversarial position against very large companies and their subcontractors, where is the economic prosperity supposed to come from, guys? Like, you can't just have restaurants carrying the United States. Those are secondary industries. Where is the money going to come from? What job is going to produce economic activity to generate income to give people the money to go to the restaurants, right? You cannot have standalone restaurants and retail without some form of manufacturing or other primary employer. It just doesn't work. So the United States has shipped off all these jobs overseas that are the primary jobs, and we've retained retail and secondary employers. And then we wonder why things are going worse. And that's kind of what they talked about a little bit earlier in the video, right? Argentina wants to rebuild itself using its lithium reserves, using its oil and gas reserves, using those things that are those primary raw materials and resources that industries are built around that will generate that economic activity that will give people money that they can then spend on things like retail and luxury goods. I get that these big companies are like the big bad wolf, an easy target, but I think it's a little bit misguided. Sure, there are big bad companies. Don't get it twisted. Not all of them are good, but this general demonization of the rich person, people are rich because they, for the most part, provided something of value. People didn't just give Jeff Bezos all their money by force. He provided Amazon.com, which made everything more convenient, and they freely handed all that money to him. And then he built a mega yacht. And now you're mad at his mega yacht. Like, guys, you gave him the money.
A grandes grupos económicos y en relación a los trabajadores, en realidad lo que está trayendo es más miseria.
But as for whether Milei's austerity measures are working, it really depends on where you look. When he took office, monthly inflation spiked to 25% after his government scrapped price controls and devalued the currency. But it slowed since then, reaching this two-year low in July.
And that is very important because inflation affects people not only in material terms, also in psychological terms, okay?
Yeah, when you see the number on the prices of everything just going up and up and up and up and up, that messes with your head. Inflation is a hidden tax, guys. Minimizing that's important.
For someone going to the supermarket and seeing that a product have the same price as the last week, well, that has a psychological impact that is very, very important.
The government also now spends less than it receives in tax revenue. That's notable for a nation that in 2001, during a brutal recession, went through 5 presidents in 2 weeks and defaulted on a record $95 billion of foreign debt.
5 presidents in 2 weeks? Wow.
We haven't seen this level of sustained fiscal surplus since 2008. It's a country that has always spent way more than it has, which is one of the key culprits behind runaway inflation.
Some critics say that the onset of a fiscal surplus is simply the result of one-time cost-cutting measures. In the first 3 months of 2024, the economy fell into another recession. Consumer spending and manufacturing tanked in the wake of Milei's austerity measures, and tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. Salaries for those in the formal sector have failed to keep pace with prices.
Okay, and this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit that's going on in the United States as well, guys. We haven't had, thankfully, 250%, 300%, but private sector wages are not keeping up with inflation.
And it's worse for informal workers, who are paid under the table and make up almost half of the total workforce in the country.
Hey, okay, maybe one of my Argentinian or Argentine friends, A, correct me how to say that properly, but B, how is it that half of your workforce is informal under the table? Is that accurate? That seems really high. Also, what kind of work are they doing where there's that many people paid under the table? Please explain it to me in a comment.
In June, Argentina's Congress approved a sweeping bill that grants Milei emergency executive powers, privatizes a number of public companies, makes it easier for employers to fire workers, and provides tax breaks for foreign investments in key sectors like mining.
It's really important for investors because it's a test of whether or not Milei can get congressional approval to back his ideas. It's one of the biggest challenges that he faces because Milei is sort of a one-man party. There's no one else.
In 2025, midterm elections will reveal whether Milei's measures and the hardship they've meant for those who gambled on his presidency pay off.
Yo creo que tenemos un gran potencial de crecimiento.
That signal of hope is important because if they can get international investors interested again and start getting these mining industries and other natural resource industries off the ground, the government revenue from taxing those industries can help drive further improvements, stabilize things, help get all this under control, have good paying jobs, increase those incomes higher than the rate of inflation, slow the rate of inflation because they're not printing as much money. All of these things seem like positives, but like they just pointed out, he's kind of a one-man party. He needs the support of his legislature. Same thing here in the United States, guys. Everyone is all about, do we vote for Trump or do we go vote for Kamala? Well, obviously Trump in my case, If you guys disagree with that, that's fine. But the same thing applies in the United States. Just because a president gets elected does not mean they can do everything they've promised to do. Most of the things these federal folks run on and say that they're going to do, they cannot do by themselves. They need the support of the legislature. That is normal in a lot of our governments across the world. Very few pure dictatorships exist right now. Just remember that, guys. Calm down a little bit. Not everything that everybody talks about in politics can be implemented by themselves.
Que pasar el invierno, tenemos que pasar esta mala temporada.
Obvio que tengo esperanza, tengo fe, creo. Tiene que cambiar, va a cambiar para bien. Ya está viniendo el cambio con Milei, se nota.
What an interesting little video. And thank you to my Argentine or Argentinian viewers for recommending that we do an update on Milei. I really hope things are going well. It does sound like the economic numbers are turning around in your favor, and I pray for the continued prosperity of the Argentine people and that you guys can be a good model for the rest of the Western world. It is interesting that y'all and El Salvador have turned your countries around so well, and as long as you can keep that going, you guys are going to be doing better than we are. Because if we keep going on the trajectory we are, we're following behind the bad decisions that y'all seem to have made many decades ago. Y'all are trying to cast off some of these more socialist policies, and for some reason, half of our country seems hell-bent on implementing them all here, even though we've seen across the world repeatedly what happens when these kinds of policies are implemented. Everybody pray for everybody's future. Thank you to those of you that made it to the end of this video. I greatly appreciate your support. If you want to see more videos like it, please subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon so that you can be notified when I upload additional content. If you have a recommendation for a future topic or song you want to see reacted to or discussed on the channel, please make sure you leave it in a comment below and I will get to it as soon as I can. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves and God bless. Go ahead and check out one of the links on the screen now to either subscribe to the channel and see the rest of the videos of the channel, or one of the carefully selected videos that you may wish to see that YouTube has used its algorithm to select for you.